Okay, in this video I'm going to have a brief look at how we make changes to a map in Winols. I'm going to use the Passat original file that I've been using all along for these videos, so if you've watched any of the others you'll be familiar with this by now. At the moment I've got it open on the EGR. Now, I'm not suggesting that you make these changes to an EGR, and I'm not suggesting that you copy these changes. This is just to show you some of the changes that it's possible to make. Now, we can look at this in 2D view, but obviously we wouldn't want to change it in 2D view. It's not precise enough. So if we change to text view, somewhere here we should have, there's our map. Now, it should have opened in the sort of view that I could expect to have when I see this as a map. I'm going to just shift those bits across to square it up, but it's not squaring up. Something isn't right, so it hasn't opened correctly. It should have done, because it says over there, show it like a map. There's it shown not like a map, and when I click that, show it like a map, I should get a view as it will look in a map. So let's try again. Let's see if we can. No, it's still refusing to go. So why is it doing that, I wonder? What have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Oh, well, there we are. For some peculiar reason, it's decided that we should have 14 columns, which is nonsense. So we'll go to 13. Right, there we are. That's the view that we should have got. There you go. You see, Winols does these things sometimes for no apparent reason. Have we got the rest of it on here? We've got the axes okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15, 16. So that looks as if it's all okay. Right, now I can look at this like this, or I can change it to the map view completely. So what I'll do is I'll double click and open it onto the map, and just make sure that we can see it all nice and clearly. And here we've got injection quantity, the factors have been added, and here we've got rev per minute, and you could say the factors have been added, although of course in engine speed there are no real factors to add. And here we've got the EGR values, which of course are really the mass airflow values as detected by the airflow meter, and these have been factorized slightly so they are sensible looking numbers. Right, okay, let's just get rid of that highlight. Right, now let's run through a few things that we can do when we want to make changes. To make changes, we're going to want to select things. Now, obviously, if I select one cell, I'm just sitting there looking at one cell. But let's have a look at what selection will do. If I go up here, I've got in the selection, select cell, select row, select column. So I can click select a cell, I can click select a row or select column. I can also click my overall selection mode. I can go down to here and I can pick one of these. Now if I pick consecutive, then when I go like that, notice it's consecutive. In other words, it always picks all of the information right up to the point that I'm actually clicking on at the moment. So if I keep going, it's as if all the information, the greyed out area, follows the pointer, and so whatever is behind the pointer or the cursor, that's what's selected. Right, now let's just clear that and go back and look at selection mode again. There we are. Let's try rectangle and see what we get. It's just picking whatever rectangle I choose. As long as I've got my finger pressed on the left button, I can pick any rectangle I like. I can pick all of it. I can pick a small piece of it. I can't go from there though and pick one of the bits over here. I mean, I can do it like that, but what I mean is I can't actually jump from here to here without letting go of the mouse and going over to there. Otherwise it just select the whole thing, which is simply common sense. What else have we got? We've got columns. So I can select that column, or I can select that one, or that one, or that one, or that one, or not. and then I can just delete that and not select at all, so I can select columns. And I can select rows instead, so this time I'm selecting the rows and not the columns. So you see, I've got a choice of what I want to select. So okay, now that's one of the things that I can do. Right, now let's see what happens then if I decide I want to make some sort of changes. Now I need to remember that I'm on select rows at the moment, because so if I do anything I'm going to suddenly pick it up as rows, so I need to remember that, or I can just go back to the default, and the default is usually the consecutive selection. Okay, now let's pick a number that I can change. Now I don't really want to change the 850s because they're already on a maximum, so let's go to there, 250. Let's make that one maximum like the one above it. So I'll just, while I'm on that one, I'll just type in 850. So there we are, 850. Now if I press enter, I get this box, and of course the box is just telling me if you've made a mistake, click OK, because that will ignore whatever mistake you've just made. So in other words, it won't make any changes. And in fact 4, 5 and 6 all allow you to just cancel what's been done. So I could just click 4, no, ignore change, and it would be ignored. I can click yes, apply change, and if I do that I'll get asked this question again next time. I can put yes, apply change for the entire operation, which means that I may not be asked again while I'm working on this map, but I may well be asked if I go to anything else. Or I can just click yes, apply changes and turn protection or memory protection off. Now I'm going to use that one because that way whatever I do in future it's not going to pop up and say to me, here's a box of choices, make a choice. So I'm just going to pick that one, and then that box won't bother me anymore. And you can see what's happened now is the 250 has changed to 850, and because it's now 850 and it's higher than what it originally was, it's red. So had I made it 150 instead of 250, I would now have 150, but it would be blue because it would be a lower value. So it's changed it. Now what I can do instead, of course, is I could just say to myself, well, what I'll do is I'll pick a whole row, so I'll just go across there and have that as my whole row, and then here I will type 850 and press enter, and now you can see what it's done. It's turned my whole row into 850s, and because all of those numbers are higher than they were previously, they're red, and this end one is still black because that's what it was. It was 850 originally, so the original value is staying black. Higher values are red and lower values are going to be blue. Now, okay, to prove a point, let's just click on that one and then click in there, and then let's put in 0, 0, 0, because that way we can see what happens when we make the thing lower. Now there we go, it's made everything 0. Don't worry about the fact that it's a single 0 and not 3 noughts. That makes no difference when we're looking at a map. So okay, so it's made all of those 0, but the important thing is, and I hope you can see this on the video, they've turned blue because they're less. Maybe I should have gone for a clearer figure. Let's go for 100 instead. Hopefully you can see that 100 in blue. So I've got increased numbers, they're all red, and I've got decreased numbers, they're all blue. And this is why I said don't try copying what I'm doing to any files, because I'm just playing with numbers to show you what you can do with numbers. Now let's go and change the view. So let's change the selection mode then on the selection view. Let's go for a rectangle, and what I'll do is I'll just pick a lump. Now we've got a few different values in there, haven't we? We've got 850s, we've got 100s, and we've got 250s. But what I'm going to do is go to that corner, and I'm going to click 850 and enter. And now my whole rectangle, they're all 850. Let's go back again. Let's change the mode to a column. And let's pick a column there that's got some different values in it. So I'll pick that column, and then I'll go back to there and I'll type in 850 again and press enter, and my whole column is now 850. So you can see that I can select in various ways. So I can speed up my selection process and then just simply press enter. So I can pick an individual value, I can pick a row, I can pick a column, I can pick a block, or I can simply go back to the one that it usually defaults to, which is consecutive. And what I could do is I could just click and drag across to the end, go back to the beginning, 850, and now everything's 850. Now, in the early days of remapping EDC15s, people would sometimes change all of the values in an EGR map to 850. The logic being that if they're all 850, then all of the mass airflow will be expected to be via the measurement from the AMM or MAF. And because that is expecting to get all of the measurement, then equally it's expecting none from the EGR. And if it's expecting none from the EGR, then the EGR must be shut. And so the EGR wouldn't be open. And at that point, we could either leave it like that or we could blank it off completely. Now, from somewhere in the region of 2001, when the PDs were introduced, the ECUs became much cleverer and they began to look to see if these figures here were reasonable. And all being 850 is not reasonable. Now, they weren't looking at this map to see if this map was reasonable, but basically what they were doing was using other maps to compare the values as you were driving, and they were expecting a certain degree of up and downness as the EGR owned and closed. And as soon as you tried setting every value to 850, the ECU would spot that the EGR values or the MAF values were not going up and down as expected, and the MIL light would come on the dash and you would have an error code. And so you can't do this sort of setting on even quite old vehicles now, and you certainly can't use blanking plates to block off the EGR. You have to use another route to trick the ECU into accepting the fact that the values it's getting are perfectly acceptable, and this is not one of those methods that you can use. Right, now just to prove a point, and again I don't really want to save this as a map in the state that it's in, but to prove a point, if I close that, there's our original file, except of course now it's not an original file. Now, it doesn't matter if I make changes here in the main file or on the map. Winols doesn't care. Winols will not just change the map and change only those values with factors and offsets and the like. It changes the raw data. So whatever data you change on the map will appear here in the file changed. So you don't actually have to come back here and make any more changes. Now, what we haven't done is we haven't touched the axes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this again and I'm going to go and look at one of the axes, and I'm going to make, let's say the end, it's 51, I'm going to make it 55. So I'm going to make that 55.0, enter, and then I'll just pull that down out of the way. And there it is, you see it's changed 55.0 and it's made that 5500. So what it's done is it's accepted that change in there as part of a new axis value. And I could do the same, I could change the revs per minute axis. Now sometimes the only thing you need to change is the axis and not the data at all, because sometimes all you want to do is shift the value slightly, especially for quantity of fuel, to allow a little bit more fuel to flow, or to just change what is occurring at that particular amount of fuel. So sometimes this is all you want to change and you don't want to change these. But hopefully this little guide has given you a clue as to what you can or you can't change. Right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to close that, and I don't actually want that modified map. So once we're finished with this and I've closed everything down, I'm going to delete that completely. So if you watch any more videos based on this, this will be gone. And the reason it will be gone is because I'm going to go over to save, and it's going to save, and it's going to tell me that I can save that as a new version. So I'm going to put EGR change for the new version, and I'm going to say OK. What I will do at a later date is I will delete that version by going over to here, clicking on EGR change. That's the new version, and I don't want it anymore because I've used it for that demonstration. So I'm going to click delete. I'm being told that it's open and I need to close it first before I delete it. But normally all that would happen is if it wasn't still open like that and I wasn't still working on it, I could just click OK and it would be gone. So if you watch any more of these videos, you will find that in future that bit has gone because I don't want any more bits and pieces like that cluttering up what I'm doing. Right, hopefully that's helped with map changes. I will go on at a later date to show you some specific map changes, but that's just a general guide as to how to change the map that's in front of you at any given time.